Well, you see one institution put up a Palestinian flag. That institution, by the way, took down their American flag and replaced it with a Palestinian flag. And then you see another institution where a Georgia state trooper decides to remove a protester. It makes you wonder if we're living in like two separate timelines. I really and truly don't know. But of course, the question has been raised, will America remain pro-Israel? Now, of course, the question that was raised was given by somebody with a little bit more prominence here on this platform, that right there being the Beanie Guy, who the other night had Scott Pressler on, Seamus O'Coglin, Hannah Claire, of course. And by the way, this will not be the only video this week that comes out that will be talking about the guy with the beanie, because obviously we got to talk about the military, what's going on. And of course, he had Tony Schaefer on recently, and Tony Schaefer is always great to listen to. And he always makes some very, very good points. But of course, there are some people out there who, like myself, need to fill in the rest of the gaps and, of course, tell you what the hell's really and truly going on. Especially seeing how it is that these videos right here this week are going to be a little bit fewer and far between. I'll explain that more at the very, very end. And seeing how it is that I'm recording this video on a Sunday night in order to be released on Monday, I'm pretty sure you guys are probably thinking this is probably a holdover video, but once again, we'll explain that more towards the end of the video. So, will America remain pro-Israel? Well, if you get a story like what I'm about to show you now, then you might would think that it probably will
walking
not.
down the street with a German reporter, and Luke's, anarchist, Ron Paul, some guy yelled Nazi Schweinhund
Wow.
at him. So what happened? Dude, Luke's video is crazy. People get off the curb and run up and start punching Luke and the other German reporter, not caring or knowing who they are. So now that you have all these protesters who are like, Israel is bad, and many of them chanting "Long live Hamas" or a woman screamed while banging. It's just like a viral video. She's screaming, "We are Hamas." If a Jewish guy walks in and one anti-Semitic guy yells, that person's a Zionist, the rest of the mob is going to go after.
I decided to start this video out with that, and the reason why is because I'm showing you guys some stuff in the B-roll footage. These right here were Palestinian protesters at NYU, Columbia. Of course, some of these, by the way, happened at the University of Texas, Austin. Some of these, of course, occurred in Georgia. There's even one of these right here where you're going to see that happen in Italy. And, of course, these protests have been going on for a while. Now, why I decided to toss the one in Italy, I really don't know, except maybe the reason why I want to toss it in there is to show people that it's obviously happening around the world. However, what a lot of people don't know is that a lot of these kids don't even know what it is that they're protesting. Still, at the same time, though, that does not give you carte blanche to go out there and destroy property. It does not give you carte blanche to go out there and block people from getting to their classroom, to their job, to their respective positions. It doesn't give you carte blanche to do that. And of course, in the previous video, we asked the question if this right here would benefit the left. And of course, that video was released on Saturday, and it will be in the description box of this video here, as well as probably a couple more in the comment section, because obviously anything related to this topic, I think, needs to be in there, so that way you guys can kind of see where we're going with this. And of course, you guys can kind of get an understanding of exactly where I've been at as far as these protests are concerned. So people have been asking questions. Will this fire become George Floyd 2.0, or will it become like Chaz Chop? I've already answered that. Obviously, this way will be an opportunity for a lot of other groups that, quite frankly, have other grievances or claim they have grievances, imaginary grievances, by the way. They will step in and they will obviously keep these protests going, because obviously it's an election year. And of course, the grievance Olympics only happens once every 4 years. I used to say race wars, but I think grievance Olympics pretty much covers everybody. So yeah, that right there is where we're going at with this. And there are many people out there, especially on this platform, especially given the fact that I too have the same sentiment or feel the exact same way. I believe that this issue right here will completely destroy the Democratic Party at large. Now, the reason why it will do it is because the Democratic Party is a party that panders to identity politics. Everything is identity politics. And of course, there's also a pro-Israel component in the Democratic Party as well. I think I've explained that in previous videos, but I'll probably touch back over it in this video here. Now, I'm going to say this right here before we get to the clip, and then I'm going to further expand later on in the video. But I want you guys to keep this in mind before we go any further. There is a guy on this platform, somebody that I quite frankly don't think is very, very bright, and I think he's actually very, very much a bad actor. His name is Kyle Kulinski. Yes, I said that. Kyle Kulinski did a video a while back explaining that, I don't know, that maybe the Democratic Party or the squad could create their own Tea Party movement. And this take was debunked by another YouTuber whose name I won't mention because I don't really care for him that much either, and I don't even know if his channel still exists, where he basically explained that this right here was a complete, total impossibility because of the way the Democratic Party's congressional districts are set up in the most liberal of places. Now, I put that in here, but we're going to be picking it back up at the very, very end because it will kind of explain why it is that this rationale of America eventually becoming anti-Israel, why it is that it could ultimately make some form of sense, but there's obviously a caveat that may keep that rather from happening. But with that right out of the way, let's go and get this first part.
I tweeted this out, and a lot of very pro-Israel people got mad, but it's true. I think support for Israel in this country is done. And the only thing holding it together right now is the older generation. In the younger generation, you have America First nationalists, which comprise a lot of Trump's base. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And, they like Israel. They think Israel has a right to exist and defend itself. We just shouldn't be paying for it.
Yeah.
Which means they're continually going to deny aid packages for military funding. And then you have on the left, the AOC, Ilhan Omar types who are, we ain't giving Israel any money because they just plain don't like Israel. What does that mean? Give it 20 years and the support for Israel evaporates. And what's going to start happening is already right now you're seeing with these aid packages for Ukraine, Taiwan, Israel, huge pushback. Democrats overwhelmingly supporting it. But with what's happening on college campuses, Democrats would have to lose massively in order for support for Israel to remain. I don't know where you go from there, though. With deep state support for Democratic politicians, the only thing that's going to happen is more and more of the base is going to be anti-Israel, and they're not going to get elected. So what is the deep state going to switch to supporting Republicans now?
He's bringing up some points, and of course in previous videos he talked about how it was that the demographics seemed to suggest that obviously this right here could be a problem for U.S.-Israel relations in the future. Also something else too, Bob Kraft, multi-billionaire under the New England Patriots, pulling a lot of his funding out of his alma mater. A lot of these billionaires pulling their funds out of these woke institutions. This right here is obviously something that, quite frankly, could be a problem for these institutions going forward. Me personally, I really and truly don't have an issue with it because most of these institutions are just good old-fashioned woke indoctrination camps. And a lot of these students, which, by the way, I'm still showing you some of the stuff in the B-roll footage, don't have an idea of exactly what it is that they're protesting. If they knew actual history, then they probably would look at the Hamas crowd. They'd probably say, you people are a bunch of loons. That right there, by the way, will also come up a little bit later on in the video. Now, there was a point that was countered to this by Seamus O'Coglin, which I'll get to here in a second. You see, most people at the end of the day, we're kind of linear. We just want to kind of get to what we're doing. We just want to kind of get to work or do what it is that we're doing. And we don't want people in our way. So every 4 years or every 2 to 4 years, whenever there's an election, people oftentimes tend to vote based upon their feelings. And of course, I've been saying for a while, but this election right here will probably be another feelings over facts election. However, it will probably go against the feelings over facts president. But to keep me from going on one of those world-famous tangents I love to go on, let's get to the next part.
I think is really important and instructive here, which is the fact that there are many Americans who don't necessarily think that Israel shouldn't exist, but who do not want American resources to go towards fighting this nation's war for it. And when Israel comes up in the American media, it's virtually always about some kind of conflict. And so much of the media wants to encourage American support for it, though, again, it depends on the publication, etc. I think you're mostly right. If support for Israel means support for the IDF and what Israel's military is doing, or I should even say more broadly, the United States having to support and fund that, then yes, I would say most young people don't support Israel. You're not going to see much support for it recover in the future here. And you can, and I've said this on the show before, you can say there's great people in Israel, etc., but criticize in the same way that you criticize America. Like, I love America. I also don't co-sign every single thing America does militarily. And I think that a lot of young people, they don't even necessarily have a strong opinion one way or another on Israel. They wouldn't say they like it. They wouldn't say they dislike it. They would just say, we don't really need to be involved.
On the heels of passing, $17 billion in aid for Israel over the weekend. I mean, this is going to spark a lot of irritation among young people who feel the strains of the economy.
What I'm showing you guys right now, the B-roll footage came from CNN, and it's only half of it. And of course, there's also another thing that we're going to be talking about later on this week, especially when it comes to Gen Z and economics and how it is that people aren't producing children. And of course, it goes back to the baby problem video that I made a while back. The point is this right here. People aren't feeling too good in this country right now when it comes to economics. They're not feeling good about the current foreign policy. So the feelings over facts guy, which is Joe Biden, he's the feelings over facts president, feelings over facts politician. He may be getting undone by how the American people are feeling because the facts are obviously not matching up with the feelings. They tell us every day, the economy is good, the economy is great, yet the price of gas just shot 15 more cents a gallon. The price of food is through the roof. You tell us that you've created a bunch of jobs, yet when you actually dig into the numbers, you find out that those jobs are part-time jobs and people are having their hours cut and people are also adding additional part-time jobs to help make ends meet. Now, what does that have to do with this topic here? What it has to do is it's got to do with the fact that a lot of people, most people really and truly don't care about one thing, don't care about it because, well, in reality, it doesn't really concern them. However, what they do care about is this right here. They don't want to see their kids be sent off to another Middle Eastern nation to fight. I'll say that again. People don't want to see their kids get sent to another Middle Eastern nation to fight. However, they do hold Biden responsible, and quite frankly he is, for the current situation over there because he gave money to Iran, who then gave money to Hamas, who then attacked Israel. And to all the people out there who are very, very pro-Hamas, who are screaming and hollering for a ceasefire, once again, you don't know what it is that you're screaming for. A ceasefire is not an end to the hostilities. It's just simply a temporary break to the hostilities. The war could start right back up 2 or 3 days later, or if, say, it's a 6-week ceasefire, which I find very, very weird. They keep saying 6-week ceasefire rather than treaty. Yes, after 6 weeks, somebody could hit the other side, and next thing you know, the fight breaks out again. Also, one more thing, too. I want to go ahead and distinguish something, the difference between the two. There are genocides and there are wars. This right here is a war, not a genocide. If you get upset about that and you come across this video and you're some pro-Hamas lefty and you think it's a genocide and you decide you want to cry and holler, I don't really and truly give a crap. This right here is a war, not a genocide. When the war is over with, we will know if it was actually a genocide or not. Just saying. I almost cut the last 9 seconds, which was Hannah Claire. Now, the thing about what Hannah Claire was saying was that she was just simply putting an exclamation point on the problem. People don't really and truly care about what's going on as long as they can get to work, as long as they can get to the job. As long as they can be left alone and works and make some money or whatnot, they really and truly don't care. If you're talking about putting somebody's kids or drafting somebody's kids, which, by the way, the draft is not in place. We do have selective service. I have no idea how it's going to work out. I have an idea, but no real true answer how it's going to work out. Unless you have kids at this moment in time that, for the most part, could get possibly pulled and sent overseas, people aren't really going to care. But to those who, quite frankly, do have kids, do have children, especially those who are, I don't know, maybe have young children between the ages of 18 and 29 that are not in college, obviously seeing what's going on in the Middle East is like, I don't care, just don't send my kids over. People, for the most part, really and truly don't care until it starts affecting their wallet and their pocketbook. And everything else in the world has obviously been affecting their pocketbook. Go back to what I was showing you the B-roll footage earlier. Donald Trump right now is beating Joe Biden. Non-incumbents should not be beating incumbent presidents at this moment in time. They just should not be. I know somebody's going to probably just come in here and say, well, you're just a Trump loyalist, you're just a Trump voter. And yeah, I am a Trump voter, but I'm also a guy who will tell you the God's honest truth, whether I think somebody will win or not. Right now, it's looking that way. Something else, too, needs to be said before I go any further that kind of clamps down this, and don't worry, I'll get back to what I was talking about earlier about the left-wing Tea Party and Kyle Kulinski's very, very dumb take from like 5 years ago. I want to say this really quick. During the 2012 presidential election cycle, and you're going to hear MSNBC say this to you at least 2 or 3 times, they're going to tell you that Barack Obama was trailing Mitt Romney in the polls from the summer of 2011 all the way to the election. Bull crap. Mitt Romney was losing in every single poll from the summer of 2011 all the way to the election, for the exception of a few. He got a bit of a bounce after the 2012 RNC, which gave him a small lead that went away, and then it came back, and then it went away, and then it came back after the first debate. And of course, it went away, and he eventually lost. Joe Biden, polling against Donald Trump since about the summer of 2023, has trailed a lot more than led. Real Clear Politics average is normally where you go to if you really and truly want to know where a presidential race is going, which makes people automatically think that they're going to pull Biden. I've already explained in previous videos how it is they probably won't do that. But once again, though, that right there kind of goes to the next topic that we're about to mention. The fact that you cannot be lukewarm on a topic, or you can't be, I don't know, middle of the road on a topic this day and age in politics and expect to get elected. I'm showing you this tweet right now, which of course will have links in the description box, but I'm just giving you guys an example. I just want you to look at it and just see the letter A in that actual group. And by the way, I'm saying this as somebody who is pro-Israel. I've given my points before. I've told you guys how I feel. And the reason why I'm flashing this is because there's another race that's going on, which is Cori Bush's seat in Missouri, where she is being primaried out by somebody who's getting a lot of that group's money. Cori Bush is very, very anti-Israel. They saw an opportunity to primary out, so they're going to do that. The same group, by the way, donates to Republicans and Democrats both. You're probably thinking swamp, but don't worry. We'll talk about that in another video because I have a very, very big video coming out on Tuesday that will be discussing that very, very topic. It's about the Shapiro. I'll talk about more at the end. There's also a primary challenger who's currently getting a lot of money to run against Jamal Bowman in his seat, the male member of the squad. You know, the one who pulled the fire alarm. What I'm saying is this right here, that while there is definitely a generational component, while it is that there are people who are much, much older who are obviously dying out and a newer generation of people are coming forward, that newer generation is starting to shift right. If you're starting to shift right, chances are you're probably going to lope into stuff like that were my influences, like, for example, being raised in the church, being raised around people who, quite frankly, were God-fearing, being a Christian, things like that there, being much, much more on the right side of history, looking into military history, studying World War II, the Holocaust, all that type of stuff there. And after a while, guess what? Also, given the fact that Israel is surrounded by countries that hate their guts, and they have everybody in their nation has done time in the military, chances are, after a while, people are probably going to be a little bit more sympathetic to the little guy. But then again, though, we are living in the end times. Yes, I said that. This is not a channel based upon religion, even though my religion will come out from time to time. I do not mention that, and I do know that rampant anti-Semitism will obviously pick up. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but some of those protests that I put in the B-roll footage, they were not just from the United States. A lot of them were from European nations as well. Italy had a protest. Paris had a protest. What else was? Oh, Spain had a massive protest. Yeah, Europe's turning that way. Australia's turning that way. Parts of Asia's turning that way. And, of course, you've also got all those other nations in the Middle East, Muslim nations, Iran, Syria, Lebanon. Yeah, these people actually hate the nation of Israel. So, obviously, that is, in fact, picking up. But America, of course, is the primary, and I mean it is the primary financial backer of said nation. But going back to what I was showing you earlier, you see the tweet was about Mike Johnson. And of course, we don't have anything to really and truly confirm that, but of course, I'll add things in there. But still, at the same time, what I'm saying is that the donor class has obviously got a handle on whoever it is they're going to donate money to. And the more pro-Israel you are, chances are you're probably going to get that political donation. Take Bob Kraft, for example, under the New England Patriots. He's known Donald Trump for years. I don't know if he voted for him in 2020 or 2016. I think Bob is actually a Democrat. Alan Dershowitz is a Democrat who's known Trump for years, and he voted for Hillary and Biden in both elections, even though he defended Trump during the impeachment trial. He recently just resigned from the Democratic Party. Alan Dershowitz, by the way, is Jewish. What I'm saying to you is this right here. The money is obviously going to go to pro-Israel politicians. Now, what really baffles me, honestly, is that recent aid package that was sent out. That recent aid package, it included close to $70 billion for Ukraine. That war is pretty much over with. Ukraine has already lost that. I'm just saying that even if the current Democratic Party is trying to put on the face that they're still pro-Israel, they obviously aren't doing a very good job of it. But as I mentioned before, they're trying to play both sides of the aisle. We'll get back to the very, very end, what I said earlier here in a second. Before I go any further, though, I want to play this little segment from Scott Pressler. It's roughly about a minute long, but I think it makes a lot of sense. And before you get halfway through and you see him talking about voting, bear in mind, there's a whole caveat that's on the other side of this that, quite frankly, still makes a lot of sense.
You see that history truly repeats itself from, the Crucible to the Salem witch trials but I think it's important to note the goal of Hamas is literally the destruction of Israel. And an angle that nobody is really talking about is there are 750,000 Americans living in Israel. 600,000 of those people are eligible to vote. Why are we not getting every single one of those people get registered to vote. And
furthermore,
this is going to sound a little crazy to some people, but look at what the Democrats do. They resettle people from foreign countries into our country strategically. Look at Minnesota, how they were able to take the Somali population and take over, and that's how we have Ilhan Omar today. That these
and her daughter,
that
who's really
these
helped out in
ideas
Colombia.
were imported into our country. Why are we not being smart and strategic, for example, and taking Canadian Amish and resettling them into Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania? That's what I would do.
The importation of voters. I told you guys in the previous video that, and I've told you guys this in plenty of videos, that what's going on with the border crisis is that they are bringing in brand new voters. Those voters are designed to replace a brand new class. However, they're also bringing in voters from other countries that don't like the United States. So what do the Somalis do? They end up settling in Minneapolis. All right. What do the Colombians and the Venezuelans do? Oh, they end up in New York and they end up in Chicago. They end up in all these cities. Oh, by the way, I did explain in that video about one-party rule, which I'll probably link in the description box, why it is that they'll more than likely vote Democrat the first time around. But you also saw in that video how it is that you got a guy in Texas who basically explains to you that migrants aren't stupid and that they do eventually shift back to the right based upon the conditions. Hence, one of the reasons why it is that Trump's Hispanic support is going through the roof. They understand that the country was better off under him, and they also understand that it's just politics, it's rhetoric. They understand that it's a game. Donald Trump, for example, will tell you that he's the most pro-Israel president in American history, and his actions back it up, but it's not because he's pro-Israel personally. It's because he understands how geopolitics works. Now, that right there may have found a way not to make sense to you, but trust me, it will definitely make sense in this next segment. I mentioned Kyle Kulinski's take earlier about a left-wing Tea Party. Okay, the Tea Party movement back in 2010 was obviously the conservative side. I remember that brother too because I was obviously voting Republican and still am. So Republicans won that election in a massive landslide. Well, one of the biggest reasons why Republicans won that election in a massive landslide was because Barack Obama was so terrible. But also something else too to consider was that Republicans already have an inherent advantage when it comes to congressional districts. I'm showing you guys the congressional map, a lot of red there. By the way, there's also a lot of light blue, a lot of pretty much a white type blue. What I'm saying is that the nation's congressional districts are fertile ground for Republicans to win in every single rural small town district. And even some of the more traditional blue dog Democrat districts, which are still small town districts and even suburban districts, are shifting to the right. Now, it probably won't all happen in 2024. It may not even all happen in 2026, but by the time you get to 2028, 2030, those districts, for the most part, will be solidly red, meaning that Republicans, regardless of whether they have the president this year or not, will probably have a full-blown stranglehold on the U.S. House. And at best, the scenario that Kyle Kulinski wanted was that the blue districts just get bluer, and those blue districts are the most far-left districts in the country. You see, after a while, even moderates and moderate lefties like Tim Pool began to shift to the right and start voting Republican once their party goes completely off the deep end. What I'm saying is that the Democratic Party side, the liberal side, will start shrinking. It'll get smaller and smaller and smaller because the wokest of the woke and those who play the identity politics are bringing them down. I've talked about this in the presidential election sense, but it's obviously becoming a bigger phenomenon when it comes to the congressional district. Now, you're probably wondering about what Scott Presler said and how it was that they're bringing in new voters. This is true, but most of the voters they're bringing in are Hispanic, and while they will, for the most part, vote Democrat the first time around, at the end of the day, the wokeness does not exactly jive with the very, very pro-Catholic sentiment that a lot of these Hispanics want. So in their attempt to try to make the party they're voting for more moderate, and they find out that the wokes are taking it in a much, much more communistic direction. Remember, those who come from South America are coming from a much, much more communistic area. I'm not talking about Brazil. I'm not talking about Argentina, but definitely those who live in Venezuela. They're coming to the United States. And of course, while there are definitely some people amongst the crowd, there are definitely some bad actors. We've covered it before. Most of the people who are coming are simply coming because Biden told them to do that. And they think, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and try to get a better life in the United States. Now, really quick, that doesn't mean I'm in favor of that. I do obviously want a border wall, and I do obviously want these people to go back and come back the right way or do it the legal way. Just saying, we need to have legal immigration. The point that I'm trying to make is this right here. a lot of these Hispanics coming over, after a while, they're going to probably vote Republican because the current Democratic Party, after the first election, they're going to see these people are not about our values. And you've already got Hispanics who are saying that Trump's rhetoric, while it was in fact rhetoric, the nation was better off when he was in charge. And while New York City has about 7 or 8 congressional districts, the state of New York itself has still got like an additional 15. You could very, very well see a situation where you've got 14 Republican districts versus 13 Democrat districts, or maybe even possibly 18 Republican districts to 9 Democrat districts. 2-1. Pennsylvania, I think you've got 12 congressional districts. Well, what happens when you got 9 Republican congressional districts to 3 liberal districts? What about California, which has got a certain section of that state's actually beginning to shift back to the right? I think it's like 48 districts. It's like 24 and 24. What happens when all the rural districts and all the smaller town districts, and next thing, they all flip. Next thing you know, you got 32 Republican districts to like 14 Democrat districts, all of them in the big cities on the coast, by the way. What I'm saying to you is that this left-wing Tea Party is an illusion, and that left-wing Tea Party is what they would need to turn the country full-blown anti-Israel, especially when it comes to policy. The generational thing is obviously an issue, and that's obviously something that eventually will correct itself because, like I said, most of these college kids have no idea what it is that they're protesting. After a while, they grow up, they live, they learn, they work in the workplace, they find out things are not as easy or as simple as they were told. They learn things, eventually get smart. We're just dealing with their dumbassery now. Some of them, of course, stay dumbasses, but still at the same time, the tide is obviously turning. It seems to me that wokeness and representation was simply just wokeness and representation. Yeah, you're represented. You're represented because of your race. You're represented because of your sex, your gender. You're represented because of your lifestyle. But you're represented. You have no power. So at the end of the day, you get representation, but no actual voting power. Now, as far as the question of America becoming anti-Israel someday, I don't think so. This country has a very, very large evangelical base of support. I know this because I'm a part of it, and great revivals are happening, and people are getting saved, and people are getting educated all the time. And of course, people are finally getting that information out over the internet. And of course, even if we get stopped here on YouTube, the right has done a very, very good job of creating alternative platforms. And of course, we're beginning to move, and you're beginning to see that. Not to mention the fact that the anti-Israel side is completely cringe and gay, and you guys can obviously see how these people act. You see, these people will actually make people who are anti-Israel pro-Israel. Just simply saying that their actions is what's causing that. Now, before I end this video, I want you guys to obviously tell me what you think, but I want to give you guys just a couple of very, very quick updates. This right here, for one, is the only video that's scheduled on Monday. Of course, on Mondays, of course, I try to get content that was made on Sunday out because of what's going on outside the place. I want to bring down the overall content down to about 6 to 7 videos a week just for this week. The next 2 weeks, kind of experiment a little bit. Obviously, we're going to be talking about some very, very important topics, but my feeling is this right here. I want to make much, much better, much, much more quality edited videos. I typically can't tend to do that during the day with everything that's going on around here. I'm practically working out of my house and still moving around. And of course, the opportunity has kind of freed itself up. So stuff like what you saw earlier with more stuff in the B-roll footage and that type of stuff is going to be a bit of a staple going forward. And of course, essays, but of course, it's going to take me a while to fully transition. We're already starting that type of transition now, but I would expect a little bit less content, and I would expect the videos to come out between the 2 and 4 o'clock hour this week. We're just going to be testing it out for this week. I understand YouTubers, you got to keep posting this, that, and the other. And of course, I'm not going to just disappear on you guys, but I do have a medical date coming up here soon that's probably going to lead to a few days this summer where I'm probably going to be out, but we'll cover that then, and I'll give you guys some updates as we go along. Something else, too, is starting this week, we're going to be going back to actually using the community tab, meaning we're actually going to be going back to using the community posts for updates and stuff. And I'm probably going to post videos to that site as well, so make sure you guys stick around for that. With that right there being said, guys, please tell me what you think in the comment section. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Please share the video. Please sign off in the comment section, and I'll see you guys later.